LSU for 1984 through 1987 under Bill Arnsparger and Mike Archer. LSU reached bowl games in each season he was with the Tigers. He now serves as Vice President of Crescent Crown Distributing. LSU is 6-2, 3-2 in the SEC after their tough 27-24 loss at Ole Miss. And the Tigers host Furman, that's Furman, on Saturday at Tiger Stadium. Please give a warm quarterback club welcome to Nick Hazard. Nick.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Steve, enjoy CJ while you have him, because unfortunately I think he's going to get scooped up real soon. That's the bad thing about being at a place like Tulane. I think that Curtis Johnson is everything you say he is, and a lot of other people are going to take note, especially when they go to that bowl game and possibly win Conference USA. That said, I don't know about Les. Somebody else can take him if you want. I'm just not a fan, and I can tell you, the guy, I used to say that he did everything well except on game day, because he mismanaged the clock once again at the end of the game Saturday night, but he typically ran a pretty good program, made good decisions off the field, kept his players on the straight and narrow, and lately, even going back to the beginning of this year with Jeremy Hill's situation, putting it to a player vote, I've never heard of that before. I think that's a little bit, if I was an opposing coach in a recruiting battle, I would use that against him, especially with the moms and dads. So I think he's kind of opened himself up there. But then when you get into the game day situations, I'm a little bit baffled. I was talking to Coach Robichaux before we started the dialogue, and the problem that I see with LSU is, quite frankly, it's just game planning and in-game management. So if you have a situation like happened Saturday night on Ole Miss's defense, and oh, by the way, give Hugh Freeze and his coaching staff a lot of credit. They were undermanned. They played without 6 defensive starters, 6, including the starting 2 cornerbacks, their outside linebacker who was leading the team in sacks, and oh, by the way, their starting running back was out too. So all these things you put into play, and you would think that LSU would have a decided advantage, but Coach Freeze and his group put together a heck of a game plan. They said, we're going to take away their 2 best receivers. We're going to play them high and low, basically double team them, a vice, inside out, whatever you want to call it. But whenever you do that, it frees something else open. That's the first thing that a coach up in the box does. He says, okay, they're taking away this. Go to plan B, which is whatever you determine it to be. In my opinion, it was the running back out of the backfield. That's what should have happened. Maybe not Jeremy Hill, but maybe a guy like Alfred Blue or Terrence McGee, who is a little bit shiftier and can get in a one-on-one matchup against the linebacker and win. And if you, I don't know how many of you guys watched the game on Saturday night, but when you have 2 guys deep and you have 4 guys covering those 2 guys deep, that means you've got a big gap in the middle of the field. It's wide open. If you get a one-on-one with a running back versus a linebacker, typically speaking, advantage goes to the running back. In this situation, LSU failed to exploit it. They failed to call the plays. Either they were calling it and Zach Mettenberger refused to do what the coaches told him, which leads us to a different situation, or the LSU coaches there failed to realize it. I got to tell you, I think Ken Cameron realized that. Why they didn't do it, I don't know. In the second half, the first series, one that we eventually went 3 and out on the second down play, they tried to throw it to Alfred Blue out of the backfield. A little one-on-one matchup with the linebacker. He dropped the pass. We didn't throw it again the rest of the half. I'm baffled by that. Cam Cameron is a pro-style offensive coordinator. They are all about exploiting matchups. That's what the entire NFL game is, and now the college game is too. That's why you see the scores soaring. Average 44 points it seems like in the SEC. It's because the coaches are figuring out you can isolate through formations, movement. You can get the matchups you want, whether it's Jimmy Graham at the pro level or Terrence McGee out of the backfield at the college level. That's what you have to do. LSU failed to do that. Mettenberger, he was off. I thought that he didn't throw a good ball most of the night. He threw several behind, even on the one that Jarvis Landry was wide open deep, had the guy by easy 3 or 4 steps. He severely underthrew it, almost got intercepted. Well, not making adjustments is something that is 100% coaching. Whether the players aren't executing what you tell them to do, or whether you're not giving them the right input from the sideline, either way, that's a coaching responsibility, in my opinion. Hold the players accountable for executing the offense or give them the right plays, either way. Defensively, this is the one that really baffles me because I'm a big John Chavis fan. I think very, very highly of the guy. But yet in LSU's 2 losses this year, I think that he made some bad decisions. And that the decision was to not blitz against a pretty sharp quarterback, a quarterback who's just basically sitting back there picking you apart. And the conventional wisdom is, well, if you blitz, you're going to leave your inexperienced and undermanned secondary out there to fend for themselves. It's going to be feast or famine. Either you're going to get to the quarterback or they're going to score on you at will. Well, the only contention I have with that is that they scored anyway, and they continue to do that. And if you look at both the Georgia game and then this past week against Ole Miss, both situations repeated themselves, and that was when we did blitz in the first half, which was just a few times. In the Ole Miss game, it was right before the half. We blitzed them a few times. They got to about our 38-yard line. We're looking to maybe kick a field goal or get into scoring territory. We blitzed him twice. Jalen Mills, I didn't think the guy had any arms, but he did end up sacking the quarterback 2 times in a row. Took him out of field goal range, and Hugh Freeze inexplicably didn't even try a Hail Mary and just walked off the field. But we blitzed him twice. We got to Bo Wallace. Bo Wallace is not the most mobile quarterback. He did have some escapability Saturday night that burned us a couple times, but you got to take the chance, or else he's going to do what he did, which was methodically draw the ball down the field and just eat our lunch, basically. And that's what happened in the second half. We refused to blitz, just like we did against Aaron Murray against Georgia, and they just methodically moved the ball down the field, got into scoring range, and then it becomes a one-play game. And both times we ended up giving up the winning score. And it's just unfortunate that it comes down to that. But you have to look at the coaches, and that's my opinion. These are players, they do what the coaches tell them. Yeah, Zach Mettenberger's got to throw a better ball. But if he's not getting it done with what you're trying to do, you got to go to plan B and make an in-game adjustment, and we failed to do that. I think that LSU right now is also in a situation where they don't have a whole lot of put the next guy in. We're a little bit thin at a lot of positions, and that's what happened to us this year relative to the defensive backfield and relative to the linebackers on defense. I think that we'll continue to struggle throughout the year. I don't think it's going to get a whole heck of a lot better. I do think that obviously we should beat Furman at 3-4. They did beat Appalachian State. Appalachian State was a decent team, but they're not very good this year. They're 1-6. So given the fact that we should win that game, we're going to go into Tuscaloosa after a bye week, and it could get ugly for us because Nick Saban, if he's got something, if he knows he can do something on you, he will do it. He'll do it all game, and I think that they will pound the ball right at us. Yeldon is the guy's he's a beast, and they can throw the ball. They can do whatever they want, and unfortunately for LSU, I think that is going to be a big problem. And I thought that before the game against Ole Miss. It was just, when you look at the schedule, we should beat Furman, we should beat Arkansas, who's falling off the face, and the Texas A&M game, who knows what could happen in that game. It could get into it, just they don't have a defense, so it could just be a scoring match, who's got the ball up. LSU, 3 losses I think is a given. Is it going to be 4? We don't know. That's disappointing for LSU. That's disappointing for a lot of LSU fans. And quite frankly, if we win the game against Ole Miss, probably sitting at number 5 in the BCS that came out yesterday. I think that would have been a little bit fool's gold, in my opinion. Georgia was a good team, but we're not at the level of those top 2, 3, 4 teams, which, in my opinion, Florida State, Alabama, and Oregon, Ohio State. Those 4 who are the top 4, if we were in the playoff system, which we'll be in next year, those would be the 4. No doubt in my mind, those are the 4 best teams all around. So some harsh words of criticism, but I got to tell you, even if we would have beaten Ole Miss, I still would have said the same thing, because it's going to come back to haunt LSU. And they're thin. You know, you're going to lose Mettenberger. The two receivers are probably going to go, because when you're looking at a draft and the amount of money you're talking about by moving up just a few places or a round or two, look at the kid Barkley. Oh my goodness, I feel bad for the kid, but after seeing what I saw yesterday, he probably didn't deserve to be the #1 overall pick. He stays for the right reasons, going to be, you know, USC, and he goes from a first-round pick to a fourth-round pick. Cost themselves millions of dollars. These guys, you know, Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, who's their quarterback next year? Is it Jennings? Is it Rivers? Who knows? Do they know if that kid can throw them the ball and get it to them like Mettenberger did? Probably not. So my guess is both of those guys will be top 2 rounds, easy. Given the fact that they perform well at the combine, they're going to be gone. Jeremy Hill, kid, I'm not sure. I think Jeremy Hill is eligible. He's eligible. You know, he's not tearing it up as a scholar, so he's probably going to be gone. Again, if you don't have a balanced attack and you become a one-dimensional team, you're not going to get the stats. Those wide receivers aren't going to get the stats. They're not going to make the highlight reel, which, oh, by the way, I think Zach Mettenberger was pressing a little bit, because the game plan the week prior was against Florida, was pound the ball, you know, go at their weakness, which was their front 7. Does he press a little bit and try and, you know, get himself back on the ESPN top 10? In my opinion, it looked like it. That's why he kept forcing it downfield. Again, but the coach has got to handle that. But back to the cupboard being bare for next year, it's not a dire situation, but it's a challenge. LSU does not look like they're in great shape for 2014. That's just my opinion. I think we always seem to do pretty well at some of these positions, especially the skill positions, but when you're replacing potentially 3, let's call Mettenberger, Jeremy Hill, Beckham, and Jarvis Landry, I think all those guys are first-day picks. You know, of the top 3 rounds, possibly top 2. That's a lot on the offensive side. That's a lot to replace. And the people coming in behind them have minimal experience, minimal. So we got an uphill battle. Maybe Coach Johnson will be available up in Baton Rouge. I don't know. I will say this too: Tulane Stadium is going to be ready next fall. I think that's going to enhance Tulane's program as well. You know, being on campus, I think it's 27 to 30,000 people. That's a true college atmosphere, and hopefully people freak out because I'm a Tulane fan too. The only time I don't pull for Tulane is when they're playing LSU. Other than that, I want to see Tulane do well for the city of New Orleans, for the friends that I have who went there. It's the largest employer in the city, in the state, I believe. It's the largest employer in the state of Louisiana. So when Tulane does well, it's good for every one of us in one way, shape, or form. So I pull hard for them, and I hope that Coach Johnson sticks around. I hope that they continue to have success, and maybe we can renew the rivalry at some point in time in the very near future. But you know, tough outlook for LSU in my opinion. It's just one man's opinion, but I think it's a tough situation that we're facing, and I think you'll start to see some of those coaches defect too. I guess at that point, I'll turn it over to some questions or opinions and throw them at
me. You mentioned that you weren't a fan of Les Miles, but I've never seen a coach be so candid in his post-game press conference as he was. And plus, all the guys you're talking about that LSU is losing, they're losing them to the NFL. So Les Miles is bringing in the talent that needed to be to win.
Yeah, and Dale Brown brought him in too, and he could win the national championship.
So let me ask you this:
Sure.
Who would you want instead of Les Miles? Exactly.
Curtis Johnson. I'm telling you, he's going to be on a lot of people's short list.
Well, I agree about Curtis Johnson.
And Les he's not a bad coach. I think he's a horrible in-game manager. Absolutely horrible. And I think that, I've heard from people very close to the situation that Cam Cameron, who's his longtime friend, said, look, Les, the only way this is going to work out is if you don't get on the headphones and call the plays at the end of the game. And that's, I can tell you, that's fact. Why there were so many mishaps over the years is because the coach gets on the head. He's the one who's got to answer the questions after the post-game press conference. So I guess he figured, I'm going to be the guy, answer the questions. I want to make sure that I'm in control of the situation instead of letting the coaches coach. I mean, I've heard stories, this one isn't confirmed, but Gary Croton, basically threw the headphones down and walked out of the booth in the Ole Miss game a couple years back. When was that? 09, I believe, or 10, not sure, 11, can't remember. There's so many of them, unfortunately. But to me, Les Miles is, he's still getting good recruiting classes. LSU is it's not a hard sell. It's not. The facilities are phenomenal.
It's gotten a lot harder since Saban's been in Alabama, though.
Well, and that's one of the things that you're going up against. You're going up against success. And let me tell you, more and more teams are having success. It's not the pool of talent is being diluted. And then when Florida State starts having success again, if Miami starts having success again, that dilutes the pool even further. So, it's tough to stay on top. But I will tell you, my opinion of Nick Saban, unbelievable coach who holds his players and his staff accountable to them. I'm going to tell you this, Nick Saban probably would have pulled Zach Mettenberger after the second interception, because I'm pretty sure somebody said, Zach, if they're covered high-low, don't throw it deep. Somebody's open underneath. And he did it again and again. But I don't think, right now we're thin, so he can't do it. That's just my opinion. It's an opinion. It's not fact. But, Nick Saban, that kind of stuff doesn't. Nick Saban is freaking out over an illegal formation penalty when he's up 52-0. Yeah. And let me tell you, everybody in that locker room knows it too. Everybody knows, a good friend of mine told me a story. He said that, he works in Alabama. He's a big time booster over there. And he went to the coaches, into the football office, and everybody was having a good time. And he's like, oh man, everybody looks like they're in a great mood today. He said, yeah, because Nick's not in town. Nick's up in New York for an ESPN interview. When Nick's in the office, you can hear people's ass cheeks squeaking, because he's got everybody on high alert every minute of every day. There's no joking, no funny. If he says it's funny, then it's funny. Nobody else says it's funny. But I think that's the deal. I think I'm getting the hook. Take care.